Welcome back. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis learned an important lesson this week. Don't mess with the mouse. The Walt Disney Corporation has come out on top, at least for now, in the ongoing power struggle between the company and DeSantis to control the previously independent area that houses Disney's parks in the state of Florida. A new document, first reported by the Orlando Sentinel, reveals that just weeks before the board DeSantis established to take control of the area came into power, Disney moved to limit that new board's control, unbeknownst to the governor and the board itself. And they did it, at the time, under perfectly legal ways to do it. The company also invoked a rare legal clause that makes the move valid in perpetuity or until 21 years after the death of the last living descendants of King Charles. For real. Yes, the king over there. The board said that they will challenge the document. The fight between Disney and DeSantis started over Disney's political activities, namely their support of the LGBTQ community, as DeSantis continues his push to curtail LGBTQ visibility. Our senior national politics reporter, who is based in Florida, Matt Dixon, joins me now. And Matt, like I said, it feels like a plot twist in Succession. You're like, Logan Roy did what? And I guess this is what happened here.
Is it a King Charles III like themed Disney ride that we were talking about? There's a lot going on.
So walk me through. This happened, I think, 24 hours before the new board was put into place.
Yeah, it happened February 8th, and one of the strangest twists is it wasn't some secret meeting or some sort of private thing behind closed doors. It was done during a publicly noticed meeting that anyone could watch at 10. The Orlando Sentinel did a great job of getting some of those meeting documents. So this was a thing that kind of the governor's office just missed. That it was 24 hours, one day before the House signed off on the DeSantis appointed board, sort of taking over what was the old Disney or Reedy Creek board. And it happened in plain sight, but here we are talking about King Charles III and sort of gubernatorial and Disney intrigue.
What do they think they can do from the government side of things here?
That isn't totally clear at the moment. We've certainly been asking, and we don't have a clear legal strategy as far as how the governor's office is going to kind of pursue this moving forward. Without question, they're going to. Governor DeSantis' sort of motto is never back down, never apologize, double down, and that we fully anticipate, and I think Disney does as well. But at this point, as far as the blueprint or how they're sort of signaling that they're going to push back on this, we're not quite sure. But it is definitely something to watch. I'm certain the DeSantis administration isn't just going to sort of let this slide.
Bottom line is they have just basically defanged this entire new board, correct? They are at this point a condo board.
Yeah, that's a very Florida way to put it.
Yeah.
But by the new board's own admission, some of the quotes from the Orlando Sentinel yesterday had board members essentially saying, well, Disney is the new board. We are, they didn't quite say that we are toothless, but functionally what they said during that meeting that we're talking about is we are now toothless because of this February 8th agreement that the old board signed before the legislature and DeSantis could sort of make these changes.
Matt, you know this administration pretty well. Is this hubris, naivete? What do you chalk it up to? How did they miss this?
I mean, it seems six one way, half a dozen another, in the sense that they're usually pretty good at this stuff, but we don't get any sense that they saw this coming, and it caught a lot of people off guard. And again, I'm gonna circle back to the point I made initially. This happened in a public meeting. This wasn't some secret thing in the C-suite at Disney that was done with no spotlight. So all anyone really had to do, and the Orlando Sentinel decided to do it, was follow the agenda. Well,
Bob Iger always said he wanted to run for president. I guess he could say he beat Ron DeSantis. Anyway, Matt Dixon.
At least at this point.
At this point, he has won one round against Ron DeSantis. All right, Matt Dixon, our Florida-based national politics reporter. Matt, thank you. Now I've got the panel here, political congressional reporter Nicholas Wu, former Democratic senator from North Dakota, and a CNBC contributor Heidi Heitkamp, and the former governor of North Carolina, also a Republican, Pat McCrory. Gentlemen, how are you? Nicholas, let me start here. I got to say, be careful going after corporate lawyers.
Yeah, there's something kind of ironic about this whole situation, right? Like, Governor DeSantis is trying to win these culture wars and show that he can stand up to Disney and make a mark with his policies here. And, well, clearly Disney had the better lawyers. And, I don't know if this says all that much about how he, might wage these future culture wars going forward, but, maybe the governor's lawyers will look a little more carefully.
But, Pat, I do look at this as a sort of it's leadership 101. If you decide, when the bully punches, and then the bully gets punched back, the bully's like, what the heck? What do you mean? You're not supposed to be able to punch back. If you lead pugilistically, don't be surprised when people respond pugilistically. If he wanted to do something and worked with Disney, maybe they'd be in a different situation. I just think this is a exposure of him as an inability to be a leader. He can be pugilistic, but he's not a leader.
I don't know if I'd take it that far, because one thing I learned as both a mayor and a governor, you're up here and you just assume you've got this incredible legal staff underneath you. But the fact of the matter is the legal staffs and mayor's offices and governor's office are entry-level jobs, a jump-off point to another. And then you're fighting a corporation. They've got the top law firms in the country charging $1,000 an hour. And these lawyers were looking long before that meeting. I mean, the minute this fight started,
they had their escape hatch.
They had hundreds of lawyers looking at this, and you get blindsided. The governor is probably working on another item at that point in time. It's a staff failing, but it happens in government a lot. I would still say in the long term, I think Disney's making a mistake, though.
Well, it is interesting. If you're DeSantis now, Heidi, do you keep fighting him or not? Because it was good politics for him for a while.
You're now embarrassed. Because it does not look good for you. You know, number one, everybody's looking at the lawyers. The mistake was made when they passed the law that changed the membership of this board. Just like there's a reason why people are told that they are terminated and they're walked out the door the same day.
Yeah.
And so the mistake,
they're the ones that left them working. You're right.
They left them to create this mischief, and that's a major problem. But overall, what it does to the rest of the country is it makes Ron DeSantis look weak. It makes him look petty. It makes him look less than a leader. And I think that's going to be problematic for him going forward. And the President Trump, has already jumped on this saying, see, look at this. You know, any real estate guy would have known this.
It also shows it's tough to run for president and be governor at the same time, too.
I don't think he's going to run for president.
Oh, I do.
Why do you say that?
Because I think that he has no lane. It's the same thing when you were having your previous guests have a conversation saying, why you and not Donald Trump? If Donald Trump's the second coming, you know, how can you make... No one can make that case that why you... DeSantis can't make a case. He doesn't have a lane if Trump stays in.
They're recruiting people right now as we speak.
Nicholas, that's the thing that jumped out at me with Vivek Ramaswamy is his inability to make the case of why not Trump. He sat there and said, hey, Trump could have done all these things, but he couldn't criticize him.
I mean, that's kind of a fundamental problem in the Republican primary right now for anyone who's not named Trump. Why not just wait until 2028 when, you know, either Trump wouldn't be in the race or, you know, something else might have happened. But, you know, as my colleagues were reporting today, there's still lots of interest within House Republicans and within Senate Republicans for someone who's not Trump. And they're almost kind of waiting for Godot in a way. But
what'd you make of him? First-time candidate, running for president first, Pat.
You know, I'm of the belief that we have too many people. I admire anyone who's willing to get in politics, especially jumping right up to president. Be frank, I wish more that top business people have been successful would run for school board and county commission and mayor and city council, because that's really where the hard work is. And that's coming from a former city council member. And I get a little discouraged that the business community has bailed out in running for local office. They want to jump right to the top of government when, frankly, they need to learn government and see if they can handle the dynamics. And no better dynamic than sitting in a county commission meeting or school board meeting or city council meeting.
Heidi, every 4 years, there's somebody we've never heard of who does run for president, a mayor of South Bend, businessman, that Andrew Yang, right? Maybe, is he fit that category that will find some success, you think, or not?
You know, it depends on how he acquits himself. And what's interesting is I kept thinking as he was talking, where he basically called Donald Trump immoral. I don't know if it was
He hit him hard, and he also said he was not, he didn't unify the country, and that was essentially the number, which is,
but saying you didn't unify the country and calling someone immoral is a pretty big leap. And I kept thinking, you know, dude, you've never been in a fight like you would be in a fight with this president, with President Trump. And so I kept thinking, how would he, I mean, how would he survive the kind of scrutiny and the kind of belittlement that president gave to anyone on the stage who disagreed with him? I think he'd crumble.
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's been the case with everybody else that went up against Nicholas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we saw on the debate stage over the past few years. And anyone who went up against Trump ultimately, even when it was down to 2 people, right, Trump still won on the debate stage.
You know, it's funny. Trump is one of the ones during a convention who called me out and called me a loser and then called in front of 2,000 people. And I was just sitting there stunned that called me a loser and then said, he doesn't represent my values. He's saying Pat McCrory doesn't represent Donald Trump's values. And part of me now, in hindsight, wishes I would have stood up and said, damn right I don't. But at the time, I wasn't that type of character, and I still am not. And I couldn't imagine doing it. But someone's going to have to do that.
Well, I think
someone's going to have to do it.
I think Christie came pretty close. I think
agree.
He's coming closer.
Yeah, but is he a credible person? This is the person who became I mean, I think of all people, Christie's the guy that became the mainstream Republican who gave Trump credibility by being the first one to endorse him and sit there and stand next to him for all of those, for the rest of the primary season. I mean, how does he have credibility here?
I think he has credibility by being the only one willing to say he cannot be the person.
Because Christie has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Like, I'm waiting for somebody who will do it, who has something to lose. I don't know what Christie has to lose. That's for sure.
All the other candidates, I think, who are good friends of mine, and I think would make great presidents, are sitting on the fence trying to have it both ways. And I think in this fight, you can't have it both ways. You gotta distinguish yourself and step out of the box and say, I'm the guy who's going to take him on.
I want to pivot to a story that I think
you better lose. If you're going to lose fighting.
So I don't get to explain the rule against perpetuities.
You want to explain the King Charles? You love the King Charles. All right,
I'm a lawyer, so every property tax, every person who failed property, never.
King or
Let
Queen
me tell
of
you,
England.
but we were all pretty jazzed because finally, in the popular media, is the rule against perpetuity.
Well, that was something else.
It was great.
Nicholas, I want to go to another story. It's not getting as much attention because it doesn't involve Trump. And that is this growing sort of where House Democrats take votes, they think the White House has their back, then they find out later the White House is going to sign the bill they voted against. Uh-oh. First it was the D.C. crime bill, then I think it's this COVID emergency. Is it creating bad blood or just uncomfortable blood?
Well, leading up to today, there was a lot of bad blood among House Democrats. I mean, all the folks I talked to were really peeved about the way the White House had handled these last few votes, where you had vulnerable frontline Democrats who took these tough votes with the assumption that the White House would just veto a bill if it ever made it through the House and then the Senate and to the president's desk. But then, you know, for them to be told one thing and then for Biden to privately tell Senate Democrats the total opposite, right, caused a lot of heartburn. And so the White House is trying to do a lot of cleanup now. We saw the White House come out early today and say that Biden would explicitly veto this new D.C. crime bill that's moving through. So there's these attempts to mend fences, but it might be too little too late.
Heidi, it does look like the Biden White House loves actually being almost... Here's what it looks like to some. He looks like he's looking for a progressive foil, or the Democratic foil. If House Democrats want to go that way, he'll happily side with some of these moderates.
Let me tell you, good luck keeping discipline when that's how you manage the caucus.
Yeah, you think they've made a mistake here?
Now,
how they've done
right.
this?
But it's fool me once, shame on me. You know, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right, there's no discipline now, right?
And so if I'm a moderate in the House caucus and the administration calls says I need your vote, I say no, you don't. You obviously don't need my vote. And so I think that's the damage. The damage has been done to the unifying the caucus. I think they have great caucus leadership, but whether he can hold it together is another question.
Very quickly, Pat McCrory, House Republicans, can they have a debt ceiling negotiation with the White House without passing a budget? Credibly?
This is going to be a who blinks first.
Yeah.
This is going to be a battle to the end, and who blinks
Well,
first.
let me tell you, Article 1 doesn't start out, thou shalt negotiate with the president. It says you legislate. And you and I have been here before.
I do think the president has a responsibility to say we need to negotiate. And they're both playing hardball, and they're appeasing their base because they're all afraid of the primary. The House Democrats and House Republicans are both afraid.
The president put a budget out there.
I was just going to say, I mean, in that sense, he has put his budget out there.
He did do that, but he also knows he's got to come And we've
right,
got a
why
major
should he move
budget
until
problem.
they move first?
Well, here we go.
Why, you don't move
Chicken and egg.
You don't get to move the chess. You don't get two turns at the chessboard.
In Washington, you get to do anything.
You will find out. All right, Heidi, Pat, and Nicholas, thank you guys.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.